My name is Clara Thompson. I am 45 years old, and until today, I thought I knew my family. As I stood in the living room, the chaos of emotions swirling within me felt as disordered as the scattered magazines on the table. I clutched the hastily written letter in my hands, its edges soft from too many readings. The words punched through my insides like ice, a claim that I had been excluded from any inheritance due to fabricated allegations about my character. "Can you believe this?" I heard my husband Mark say, his voice draping over me like a vice. I felt his eyes cold and calculating, watching me as if I were an errant child begging for attention, waiting to gauge my reaction. For a moment, I hung in disbelief, suspended between the past and the cruel present. I struggled against the tightening knot in my throat, wishing I could voice the torrent of pain that erupted within me. I could feel the chill radiating from the walls, a stark contrast to the memories of family gatherings echoing through my mind, warm dinners where we laughed and shared stories, where I felt I was more than just a caregiver or a supporting role in my own life. Today, however, the laughter felt like daggers, their edges sharpened by each lie they spun around me. As the paper slipped from my fingers and drifted to the floor, I scanned Mark's face. His was adorned with a mask of feigned disbelief, eyes flicking between me and our son, Jason, who stood cautiously a few steps away, watching the scene unfold as if it were a play meant for his entertainment. They were standing together against me now, and as I looked into Jason's eyes, I couldn't help but recognize the youthful arrogance that mirrored his father's essence, one that I'd once thought would lead him to greatness. But rather than pride, I found disillusionment, a realization that the sacrifices I had made to support his ambitions had turned him into a caricature of what I hoped he would become. With every inhalation, I fought against the bitter taste of betrayal. They thought they could bury the truth, but I was the one who found the light. I clung to this thought, trying to shield myself from the emotional storm that threatened to drown me. How could they twist my love into something so cruel? Nicky memories of forgotten dreams began rising like phantoms. The painting classes I had put off, the career I had sacrificed to support Mark and Jason. Each flashback burned into me, reminding me how I had willingly placed their needs above my own. The silence in the room grew heavy as the letter fell, the weight of unspoken truths sitting like an elephant in the air. With a steadiness I didn't feel, I finally lifted my gaze to meet Mark's eyes head-on. "You can't be serious," I said, my voice low but firm, a trembling steel that surprised even me. "Well, you should consider yourself lucky you received anything at all," he spat, the arrogance crystal clear in his tone. How could he speak to me like that? The man who swore his love, who promised to cherish me. Years of partnership dissolved within mere minutes, leaving behind a hollow shell of what was once my life. Each beat of my heart echoed in my chest, mimicking the chaotic symphony of emotions raging inside. I felt the urge to lash out, to confront them both head-on, but the better part of me knew that inevitable confrontation required tactic, not raw emotion. "This isn't over," I whispered more to myself than to them. I needed time to gather my thoughts, my next steps. And so, as the clock on the wall ticked ominously, I fought against the impending tide of despair. The humiliation felt visceral, yet beneath it all, a flicker of resolve ignited, a determination to reclaim my story from within the grasp of betrayal. I turned slowly and walked away from them, the air heavy with suppressed tension. As I stepped into the kitchen, I could hear their murmurs, their shared certainty that I would acquiesce, that they'd won some trivial battle in the war of family dynamics. Little did they know, beneath my placid exterior, I was forging a new path, one that would lead me somewhere beyond the confines of their perception and control. If only they truly understood the strength I possessed, underestimated as it continuously had been. In the days that followed the confrontation, a heavy silence settled over our home, transforming it from a space of shared memories into a foreign territory, an exile of sorts. I retreated to my modest room, a small sanctuary that had once been filled with echoes of laughter and love. Now, each creak of the floor and whisper of the wind felt invasive, as if every sound reminded me of the betrayal that loomed large over my heart. Within the confines of my room, I began a ritual of introspection, deliberating on the choices I had made throughout my life. I spent countless hours staring at the ceiling, the paint peeling above me like the facade of my supposedly perfect family crumbling into dust. Memories poured in like water from a broken dam, threatening to drown me beneath their weight. The day Jason was born played on repeat in my mind, bringing with it an overwhelming rush of affection and hope for the boy who had filled my heart with joy. But that hope had been tainted over the years, overshadowed by their ungratefulness. As each day rolled into the next, mixed feelings washed over me, alternating between anger and deep sadness. I remembered the family dinners we used to host, tables adorned with fine china, the aroma of roasted chicken wafting through the air, and laughter bubbling like a gentle brook. Those evenings once felt like a sanctuary where love thrived, but now they morphed into haunting reminders of how I had placed their needs above my own. I had built this family, sacrificed my own aspirations, only to be cast aside when I was no longer useful. Just last week I had rifled through an old sketchbook while searching for a pencil, hidden beneath a stack of unfiled documents on my desk. The pages were filled with illustrations and notes about painting classes I had wanted to take, a reminder of my own dreams stifled beneath layers of nurturing responsibilities. Something twisted in my chest as I read through the ambitions I had once penned with enthusiasm. One day, I had told myself repeatedly, but one day seemed to drift further away with each sacrifice I made, and I had lost sight of that spark I once had. On one particularly grim afternoon, I found myself staring at the walls of my room, feeling utterly lost. What had I become? Had I truly sacrificed my identity for a family that no longer valued me? The vision of Mark and Jason sharing kisses and laughter while I languished in my solitude gnawed at my heart. I stumbled upon memories of my late father, a man of honor and integrity, who had raised me to believe in the value of hard work and truth. As thoughts of my father's unwavering principles flooded my mind, I recalled his unwavering love. He had been my rock in the stormy seas of adolescence. He had taught me to cherish honesty and to nurture my dreams, and in giving those lessons to my children, I had merely hoped for their reciprocation. During this exile, I also turned inward to examine my relationships with my family. I shifted my focus to moments when Mark had belittled my contributions, or when Jason had brushed aside my advice as if it were irrelevant. Those memories came crashing down like waves, but I recognized the importance of this exercise. I was gathering evidence, not just for myself, but also for the strength that I knew deep down was still lying dormant, waiting for the right moment to bloom. Given time, this weight of sorrow gradually transformed into a flicker of determination, an ember of rebellion brewing inside me. I couldn't continue to be a passive observer in my own life. I resolved to gather my thoughts more strategically than before, setting in motion a methodical plan to reclaim what was rightfully mine, my dignity and identity. One afternoon, as I sifted through more boxes in the attic, I stumbled across a forgotten piece of my past. My heart raced as I uncovered a dusty cardboard box and pulled it into the light, its age wearing on its surface. A spontaneous nostalgia washed over me, and I opened it, revealing a collection of papers, photographs, and forgotten trinkets from my childhood. But beneath the clutter, I found a hidden treasure, a dark iron safe with an intricate lock I couldn't remember ever seeing before. My curiosity piqued like never before. The key to the safe had been tucked in my childhood jewelry box, kept for years like a talisman of forgotten dreams. I held my breath. Perhaps this was a sign that I was meant to uncover something significant. Anticipation thrummed through my fingertips as I approached the safe, the key feeling heavy in my palm as I inserted it into the lock. It turned with a satisfying click, the door creaking open as I exhaled, tension releasing from my shoulders. Inside, I found a cache of documents resting in layers, untouched by time. My heart quickened at the sight. It felt like the revealing of a long-lost treasure hidden by fate. As I sorted through the papers, my pulse quickened. Bank statements, legal documents, and old photographs tumbled out, illuminated by the soft light filtering through the attic's window. My heart sank as I began to decipher the contents, a collection of financial statements that detailed transactions I had no knowledge of, suspicious spending patterns, and amounts that didn't add up. They painted a picture of my husband and son that was far removed from the loving family I had believed them to be. Unease washed over me, coiling within like a predator ready to pounce. Could this be the evidence I needed to confront them? I rushed down the stairs, every fiber of my being propelled by adrenaline. My thoughts raced as I made my way to the study, where I kept my old journals, documents that laid bare my memories, dreams, and aspirations. Tucked between these entries lay the vital evidence I needed, my father's words ringing out in triumph. I carefully examined the documents I had retrieved from the safe. They contained insights that could expose Mark's manipulation of our finances, his debts hidden beneath the smiles and laughter we had shared. I suddenly felt a newfound surge of resolve, knowing that I could confront the horrors they had wrought upon me. Later that evening, as the shadows lengthened and darkness draped itself over the house, I picked up my phone and dialed an old family lawyer, someone who had always respected my father and valued honesty above all. "I need your help," I said, my voice steady despite the storm churning within. "It's time to uncover a truth that's been buried far too long." I felt a connection to my father, a warmth that reminded me of his integrity, his battles fought honestly. I was ready to reclaim my life. Each heartbeat echoed the glimmer of hope within me. And amidst the chaos of this new reality, one thought lingered. They thought they could bury the truth, but I was the one who found the light. The call to my father's lawyer, Mr. Henderson, sent ripples of anticipation through me. I could feel the weight of everything shifting, like tectonic plates ready to realign and settle into their rightful places. He agreed to meet me the next afternoon, and I spent the night wrestling with nerves, oscillating between doubt and excitement. In the dim light of my room, I pored over the documents. Together they formed a map, revealing the pathways littered with deceit that had led to my present discomfort. As the dawn broke the next day, casting harsh light over my kitchen table, I organized the papers into an order that made sense. I carefully gathered bank statements that revealed Mark's secret accounts and credit card debts. Alongside Jason's extravagant purchases, I had misguidedly chalked up to youthful exuberance. The idea of innocent naivety quickly dissipated under the harsh scrutiny of cold, hard numbers. This was a well-orchestrated web of lies, and I had unwittingly been caught in its snare. My stomach knotted. How had I overlooked their manipulations for so long? The realization hit me hard. I had shielded them from fallout that was theirs to manage, believing that my protection would cultivate gratitude and mutual respect. As I examined each transaction, I also noted patterns, where Mark had been spending late nights, dining at upscale restaurants, and on occasion, with friends I had never met. I pushed the dread aside. I had the evidence now, and there would be no escaping discovery. The sound of the clock ticking was the only interruption as I pooled my courage and prepared to meet Mr. Henderson. By the time I arrived at his office later that afternoon, my heart raced in anticipation and frustration. The office's polished wood, framed degrees, and tasteful decor reminded me how the legal system had long overlooked my silent suffering. But today, I was here with a purpose, ready to claim my stake in the unraveling of this farce. "Clara, it's good to see you," Mr. Henderson said warmly as he ushered me into his office. He sat down in front of a hefty oak desk, the air thick with expectation. "I understand you've been going through some challenges?" I took a deep breath and leaned forward. The papers I had spent the night preparing laid out before me like chapters in an impending confrontation. "Yes, and I think I'm beginning to understand how deep the betrayal runs." I laid out the documents in front of him, each sheet a testament to the disloyalty that had threaded itself through my family. As he rifled through them, the frown on his face deepened with every turned page. "This is quite the revelation," he said, his voice steady but stark. "You have enough evidence here to initiate a legal inquiry. This speaks not only of financial irresponsibility, but potentially fraudulent behavior." A sense of relief washed over me, mingled with a sharp pang of sorrow. I had dreamed of reclaiming a sense of normalcy in my life, but this was more profound. I didn't just want my dignity back. I sought justice, for my own peace as much as for the years they had stolen from me. I didn't want it to come to this, I confessed, my voice shaking slightly. But I can't let them think they can manipulate me anymore. Clara, you deserve to take back your power, he urged me, his eyes meeting mine with compassion. This may feel daunting, but you are not alone in this. We can devise a plan to confront your husband and son with their misdeeds. But we must ensure we tread carefully. I nodded, his words igniting a quickening within me, fueling a flame I had tucked away for too long. Then let's put a plan into action, I declared, determination solidifying. I want to meet them both soon. They need to understand the gravity of what they have inflicted upon me. As we strategized in hushed tones, pieces of a puzzle began falling into place. Mr. Henderson suggested gathering evidence in person, perhaps recording the confrontation for legal clarity. You must be prepared when they attempt to manipulate the narrative, he cautioned. They'll try to paint you as the villain to preserve their image. Thinking of my days lying in bed, ideating potential reconciliations that were purely wishful thinking, I understood the gravity of this moment. It was not merely a betrayal of trust, but an attack on my identity that required a fierce response. I could no longer be the silent guardian trapped in their lies. Instead, I would take hold of my narrative and reshape my path to justice. That evening, I returned home with a mix of excitement and trepidation. The walls felt taller and the air thicker as I entered the familiar space devoid of warmth. The anguished memories pressed against me like an oppressive fog. I sensed something had shifted, however. No longer was I a passive participant waiting for the fallout. I was poised to reclaim my story. I prepared myself mentally for the confrontation. Drawing deep breaths, I reminded myself why I was undertaking this daring endeavor. No longer haunted by the narratives Mark and Jason had spun about me, I understood with profound clarity. I had a right to my life, my dreams, and my dignity. On the following day, I waited for Mark and Jason to return home after work, seated at the dinner table like a queen awaiting her subjects. I planned to spring into action as soon as they entered, hoping to catch them off guard. The tension in the air seemed to thrum with electricity as the clock ticked steadily toward their return. I set the table with a semblance of normalcy, despite the whirlwind brewing inside me. As they entered the house, their jovial banter and laughter cut through the tension like a knife. I felt the knot in my stomach tighten, but steeling my resolve, I forced myself to maintain a calm facade. "Let's talk," I said, my voice steady as I gestured for them to sit. The laughter faded, replaced by silence, curiosity united with trepidation. As they settled in, their expressions morphed from inquisitive to wary. "What's going on, Clara?" Mark asked, glancing at Jason, whose face mirrored a concern born from instinct. I laid out the papers, each piece of evidence embodying the deceit they had orchestrated, the facade they had meticulously crafted. "I know about the money. I know about your lies." Stunned silence filled the room. I could see the panic begin to seep into their eyes like ink dispersing in water. With a conviction that surprised even me, I continued. "You may have thought you could bury the truth, but I found the light. If you're resonating with this escalating tension and want to see how this unfolds, drop a comment and share. Let's get ready for Block 4, Silent Investigation, where the real plan begins to take shape." The room felt heavy with a stifling silence, thick enough to cut. My heart raced as their expressions shifted from stunned realization to disbelief. Mark's jaw clenched, and Jason sat frozen, a deer caught in headlights, processing the tides of judgment crashing down around him. "You're mistaken, Clara. This is ridiculous," Mark said, waving his hand dismissively, but I could hear the tremor in his voice, the cracks just beginning to show in his facade. He glanced at Jason, who remained unnervingly still, and I sensed a silent conversation passing between them, a desperate plea for escape, for damage control. "Ridiculous?" I echoed, my voice firm, despite the tremors within. "Look at these documents. It's not just a hunch. I have proof." I pointed at the papers laid out on the table like a map charting their treachery. "You've hidden this from me for far too long, and I won't stand idly by anymore." "Clara, please." Jason finally spoke, his youthful bravado dimmed. "You wouldn't understand." I shook my head, feeling the fire within me blaze hotter. "Oh, I understand perfectly. You think you can browbeat me into submission because of our history, because I've always put family first? No more. I'm taking control of this narrative. Mark's bravado momentarily faltered, revealing a glimpse of frustration and fear, emotions he had always kept expertly hidden behind a mask of confidence. It was the first chink in his armor, and I was determined to exploit it. With each passing moment of silence, I knew I was forging my path out of their manipulative grip. What I don't understand, I continued, taking a deep breath to steady my voice, is how you thought I wouldn't eventually uncover your lies. You treated my loyalty as if it were a weakness. I'm not broken. I'm standing here, ready to face you both. I watched as they exchanged nervous glances, their camaraderie visibly breaking under pressure. But I needed to shift my focus now. This confrontation wasn't merely a cathartic unveiling. It was strategizing for what would come next. I enlisted Mr. Henderson, I stated, watching as their expressions turned from defensiveness to dread. He's ready to take legal action against you. I'm done protecting you both from the consequences of your actions. Though fear gripped my gut at the thought of pursuing legal action, I could feel strength rising within me, built from years of internal struggle. The more I spoke, the more the balance of power shifted in my favor. I could see they weren't prepared for my calculated resolve. "Clara, please listen," Mark implored, desperation ringing in his tone. "You don't have to go down this road. We're a family. We can fix this together." But I wasn't convinced. Their sense of entitlement felt all too familiar. They were attempting to manipulate the very shadows of guilt I had carried for far too long. Fix this? Fix it how, Mark? With more lies? I shook my head, a bitter taste rising in my throat. You've built a life on deceit, and I refuse to participate any longer. The light has been shed on your darkness, and I will not retreat from the truth. With these words, I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. For too long, I had let them dictate my worth. But now I was no longer the invisible woman behind the scenes. I was the leading role in my own story, and that story needed to unfold with the strength of my convictions. Feeling emboldened, I glanced one last time at the documents before packing them away, knowing I would need them in the days that followed. I could no longer let emotions, fear, or guilt keep me bound to them. "I need space to think," I said finally, standing to leave the table. "I also want every financial record from now on. I will not be kept in the dark again." Mark opened his mouth to protest, but I raised a hand to silence him. "No more excuses. Just give me access. This is the last chance for transparency. You owe me that much." I turned, steeling myself against the familiar environment that suddenly felt hostile. As I walked away, I could sense their anxious energy shifting behind me, a whirlwind of guilt and fear swirling in their wake. This confrontation was just the beginning. Days turned into weeks as I began establishing my plan. I transformed my approach into a silent investigation, seeking every piece of information to substantiate the case I would build against them. Each day after work, I immersed myself in our financial records, collecting everything. The little nooks and crannies of our lives became my treasure trove of evidence. I devised a methodical schedule, waking early to comb through statements before heading to work, and dedicating my evenings to researching our assets. I meticulously documented questionable expenses. I found anomalies in Mark's credit card statements, like payments to restaurants I had never heard of and luxurious hotel stays that didn't line up with family trips. They felt like breadcrumbs leading me deeper into the labyrinth he had woven. I also made phone calls, pretending to be inquiries for refinement while seeking the facts I needed. I asked cryptic questions about accounts and investments, playing naive, getting glimpses into our financial landscape that I had once trusted implicitly. Little by little, I began to fit the pieces into a coherent narrative. I discovered an online investment account Mark had kept hidden for years, layered with both unregistered ventures and alarming losses. But there was something more, an odd transaction that suggested Mark was moving funds from our joint account into this untraceable asset. It felt like stepping into quicksand. The deeper I went, the more lost I risked becoming. But I couldn't stop. I needed to know the extent of their deception. And amidst the long hours of research, when I'd finally drop into bed consumed by fatigue. I pondered the inevitable confrontation that would unfold. Each evening, I'd lay awake, mentally preparing the confrontation I would instigate, the carefully curated arguments devising themselves in my mind. It was vital to be ready, not just to orchestrate their downfalls, but to reclaim my voice, my dignity, my narrative. Layer by layer, I peeled back the lies, gaining strength from each discovery. Each truth uncovered was a feather added to my wings, lifting me higher above the catacombs they had intertwined around me. I embraced the knowledge, and as the days turned into sleepless nights, I consistently repeated my mantra. I am reclaiming my light. I am stronger than the darkness that has shrouded me. The journey ahead was no longer about survival or pleading for understanding. It was about seeking justice, about empowerment. Slowly but surely, I was turning the tables, and my voice was growing louder with every passing day. If this journey resonates with you, please drop a comment to share your thoughts. I can't wait for you to join me in Block 5, The Justice Plan, where the final pieces of this puzzle will fall into place. The morning sun flooded my kitchen, spilling light onto the stack of documents that had become my lifeline. I felt a powerful surge of purpose. I was ready to confront Mark and Jason about their betrayal, to reclaim my narrative. The evidence I meticulously gathered would unveil the truth, a truth that had been buried beneath layers of deceit and betrayal. As I brewed my coffee, the aroma enveloped me, and I mentally prepared for the confrontation ahead. This was a pivotal moment, and I couldn't afford any missteps. Each paper I arranged in front of me told a story of financial mismanagement, bank statements highlighting suspicious transactions, receipts for extravagant purchases I never knew about, and the last damning piece, an online investment account Mark had kept hidden for years. I couldn't let fear paralyze me. I had to act. I called Mr. Henderson, who listened me intently as I shared my plan. "It's crucial, Clara, to have a witness present," he advised. "This information is powerful, and you need support when facing them." I agreed, knowing his presence could lend credibility and insight to my claims. Later that afternoon, as Mark and Jason arrived home, I felt the familiar knot of anxiety twist tighter in my stomach. The air was dense with unsaid words, heavy with unaddressed tension. I called them to the dining table, positioning myself at its head, a powerful symbol of authority I intended to embrace. "This meeting is about transparency," I began, my voice steady despite the storm brewing within me. I glanced at the confused expressions on their faces, Mark's brows furrowed, Jason's eyes flickering with uncertainty. "It's time we discuss the truth behind our finances." "What are you talking about, Clara?" Mark asked, his tone edged with defensiveness. I took a deep breath and began to lay out the documents, watching as their expressions shifted from confusion to realization. "You may have thought you could hide this from me, but I've found everything. The hidden transactions, the purchases made on our joint account, and the cash diverted to unregistered investments. It's all here." A heavy silence gripped the room as I laid the evidence bare. Mark's face drained of color, and Jason glanced between us, sensing the gravity of the moment. "Clara," Mark finally managed to say, "you might be misunderstanding what you see." "Misunderstanding?" I repeated, a fire igniting within me. "You've been lying to me, Mark. You thought your secrets would keep me in the dark, but I refuse to be anyone's fool. I want answers." "I was trying to protect you," he stammered, his bravado slipping through his fingers like sand. "By lying? You didn't trust me enough to tell me the truth." I shot back, feeling the weight of the years of trust hanging in the balance. "I'm tired of feeling sidelined in my own life. What have you been protecting me from?" Jason, who had been quiet until now, attempted to speak but faltered. "Mom, this isn't what you think," he said, barely above a whisper. "Things are complicated." "Complicated how, Jason?" I pressed, looking directly into his eyes. "You've become an accomplice to this. Do you truly believe this is okay?" He shifted uneasily, and I could see the conflict play across his face. I thought I could read his heart within his eyes, but perhaps I was hoping for the better in him. "It's not just, it's hard to explain," he finally said. Try, I urged, my voice softening slightly. Tell me why you never came to me. I thought we were a team. It was supposed to be us against the world. With those words, the tension in the room thickened like molasses. Mark and Jason exchanged glances filled with uncertainty. I sensed a transformation beginning to take place, the boundaries they had built starting to erode beneath the weight of our conversation. I should have told you, Mark finally admitted, his voice admitting the tiniest fraction of humility. I thought I could manage it. I didn't want to burden you. I wasn't about to let him slip away so easily. Burden? Is that how you view me? I've supported you all these years, yet you treated me as if I were too fragile to handle the truth. You took choices away from me, decisions that affect our family. Mark opened his mouth to speak again but closed it, perhaps realizing any further words would only dig the hole deeper. We can fix this, he said instead, sincerity creeping into his tone. Fix it? How? With more lies? I asked, frustrated. Lies have built a wall between us, a wall so thick I can barely see through it now. The atmosphere hung thick with unresolved tension, but I sensed a shift. The wall was beginning to falter, cracks were appearing under the weight of their guilt. You have a choice to make. We can face these problems together, but I need to know you'll be honest from now on. Jason finally spoke up, the hesitation fading from his voice. Okay, Mom, let's talk about it. We can make sense of this. But you need to understand that things are a lot more complicated than they seem. I'm listening, I said, acknowledging their cautious approach. But you must start with the truth. With those words, I felt a sense of empowerment wash over me. I had navigated the storm of their deceit, and now I was on the brink of a new dawn. A conversation illuminated by honesty. It was a moment of reckoning for all of us, a turning point that I determined would lead to a path of healing or separation. As the three of us began to speak, the tension slowly eased, making way for an openness that had been buried for too long. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, I could see the possibility of unity amid the chaos of betrayal. If this story resonates with you, please drop a comment. Join me for Block 6, Confrontation and Downfall, where the moment of truth will lead to transformative decisions. The room was thick with a tension that was both familiar and unsettling. The three of us sat around the dining table, the heart of our home that had transformed into the battleground of our darkest secrets. I felt a mix of hope and anxiety as we began to unfold the layers of deception that had suffocated us for too long. Let's address the financial documents, I started, forcing my voice to steady. Mark, I need you to explain the reasoning behind these hidden accounts. Why siphon funds into an investment without discussing it with me? Mark shifted in his chair, his expression a tangled mix of defensiveness and shame. I thought I was protecting you both. I didn't want you to worry about what I believed were small investments, he replied, avoiding my gaze. It all spiraled out of control, and then I didn't know how to come back. Protecting us? By keeping us in the dark? I pressed, feeling the fire of frustration rise within me. You took choices away from me, used excuses instead of confiding in me. Did you think I wouldn't want to help? That I couldn't handle the truth? It wasn't just that. I thought I could manage things better if you were unaware. I thought I was in control, he muttered, his voice trailing off, guilt oozing from his posture. I shot him a withering look, unwilling to let his flimsy justifications derail my resolve. Control? You managed to build mistrust and isolation instead. This isn't about mistakes. It's about who you chose to become amid those mistakes. This secrecy is poison in our family. Jason finally spoke up, his voice tentative. Mom, you act like you're the only one who's had to contend with this mess. We've all made choices, and maybe some of those choices hurt us on multiple levels. What are you implying, Jason? I replied, the strain in my voice unmistakable as I felt blindsided by the unexpected shift in his tone. I'm saying that confrontation is messy. You've buried us in guilt without any accountability. It's not so straightforward. His eyes darted between Mark and me, seeking clarity but unable to find any. I expected you to support me, Jason, I exclaimed, emotional and raw. I didn't expect to feel like I'm fighting against you. Support you by ignoring the entire family's struggles, by pretending everything is fine? He countered, his voice rising. You cut us off by not letting us into your pain, thinking you could carry it alone. How was that fair? The air grew thick with awkward silence, the tension palpable as I let his words wash over me. Secretly, I realized he was right. I had worn the mantle of martyr, unwilling to let them see just how deeply affected I was. Instead of unifying us, my struggles had isolated me and pushed my family further away. I can see how my silence pushed you both away, I admitted slowly, my thoughts racing. But this isn't about pointing fingers. It's about understanding why we let it get this way. Mark looked between us, finally breaking the silence. Perhaps we should turn the mirror back on ourselves. I need to own up. I was reckless and too proud, and I didn't consider the consequences for both of you. I'm sorry for that. His admission hung in the air, the weight of it transforming the atmosphere. I could see the fear in his eyes, mixed with a glimmer of hope. Perhaps, for the first time, he was truly facing the gravity of his actions. Admitting our faults is just the first step, I said quietly, the softening of my voice surprising even me. What comes next is how we choose to move forward together. I don't want us to just stay in this room, hashing out the blame without any action behind it. I agree. Jason chimed in, warming to the sincerity of the moment. If we want to rebuild our trust and our family connection, we have to actively work on it. I suggest we also sit down with a financial advisor. We can collectively make future decisions. I welcomed the idea. It was what we needed, a careful roadmap for healing and reestablishing our foundation. It also offered a glimmer of hope that maybe we could avoid similar pitfalls together in the future. It would also help us break the pattern of isolation. I'll come clean on my end. Transparency about money is just the start, Mark replied. From here on out, no more secrets. We need to share everything, from finances to feelings. Everything, I repeated, my heart pounding at the enormity of that commitment. That means no holding back when things feel uncomfortable. We can't fear confrontation anymore. It's what we need. Jason took a deep breath, contemplating my words. And I promise to be more open too. I'll share my worries rather than hiding in my own guilt. As we transitioned into deeper discussions, I felt the walls between us tremble and sway, not quite falling, but shifting towards something more authentic than before. We explored our fears, addressing our vulnerabilities directly. It felt raw and necessary, exhausting, yet legitimate. Eventually, the conversation transitioned from the specifics of our financial mess to the emotional fissures it exposed in our relationships. We shared how we felt neglected or unseen over the years. The crevices of misunderstanding widened before us, a territory we would now consciously navigate together. As the hours passed and the sun dipped lower on the horizon, I could see a distinct change in Mark and Jason. They were no longer merely defensive figures opposing my grievances. They were collaborators stepping alongside me on this jagged path of transformation. In that moment, as I looked at my son and husband, a renewed sense of hope ebbed within me. This was no longer a confrontation destined for doom, but a stepping stone towards healing. Together we could emerge from this tumult, hand in hand, choosing honesty over betrayal and intimacy over separation. If this story resonates with you, please share your thoughts in the comments. Get ready for Block 7, New Life, where a new beginning promises to bloom for our family. The following weeks felt like a delicate rebirth. Each family meeting transformed into a vibrant ritual where honesty flourished. As the warmth of spring enveloped each day, so too did the fresh air of reconciliation begin to fill our home. Everyday conversations shifted. Gone were the veils of tension that once shrouded our interactions. We were rebuilding, one honest word at a time. Mark and Jason worked diligently to establish new financial practices. Each Saturday we gathered around the dining table, once a battleground, now a space of open dialogue. We reviewed our accounts together, ensuring that no figures slipped through unnoticed. I began to feel comfortable sharing my concerns, my thoughts, my very essence. a vulnerability that was once buried. "Clara, could you help me draft that budget?" Mark asked one evening, a glimmer of sincerity in his eyes. It was a small request, but significant in meaning. "I really want to ensure we're all on the same page." "Of course," I replied, the corners of my mouth lifting in a smile. "Let's work together. It's about time we set a foundation for our future." Our laughter echoed in the kitchen as we reviewed spreadsheets and made calculations, each shared glance radiating a sense of connection that had long evaded us. Jason seemed lighter too. He began sharing snippets of his life with me, opening up about school, friendships, and ambitions. One afternoon, as we stood in the garden planting new flowers, he confided, "You know, Mom, I didn't realize how much I missed talking to you like this." His honesty caught in my throat like a lump, my heart swelling with pride. "I missed it too, Jason. Thank you for trusting me enough to share." The garden flourished under our care. The petals burst into vibrant hues as if they, too, were blooming from lies to truths. As we nurtured life together, there was also a palpable shift in our connection with each other. The frustration and secrets that had overshadowed our family had dissipated, replaced by a sense of solidarity. One weekend, while having a picnic in the park, Mark turned to Jason and me with a thoughtful expression. "You know, I never knew how much I needed this," he said, gesturing around us. "To be here with both of you, enjoying ourselves. It feels right. Maybe we should do this more often," I suggested, beaming at both of them. "Life is busy, but we need to carve out space for each other. Let's prioritize family time." Jason nodded enthusiastically. "Can we have game nights too? I'll even cook." There it was, a blend of hope and nostalgia, the prospect of healing while feeding off laughter. "Game nights sound perfect," I agreed. "And cooking? That's a bonus. I'll happily take your culinary contributions." We laughed together, the sound melding with the rustle of leaves overhead, a melody of unity and newfound joy. As the days morphed into weeks, I began to unwrap memories of our past, mingling both pain and joy in equal measure. Our family dinners transformed from silent obligations into bustling celebrations, where we shared stories and memories, lingering over shared laughter long into the evenings. The space between us kept shrinking, becoming filled with trust instead of tension. However, it was during one of our quiet evenings that I caught a moment of profound reflection, the essence of what we had achieved. It was then I recalled the pain I had felt in the darkest days, that pressing weight of betrayal that felt so permanent. What had once consumed me in despair had now yielded to resilience. "I've realized something," I said one night as we lounged on the couch, the soft glow of the lamp flickering overhead. "We can't avoid the storms of life, but we can choose how we navigate through them together. We've done just that." Mark and Jason nodded in agreement, their sincerity echoing in the muted light. "We're stronger than before, Clara," Mark said, a look of promise in his eyes. "And I want to ensure honesty remains our foundation." "It will," I affirmed, my voice steady, because amidst the chaos and the hurt, we found our way back to each other. Together, we had transformed a family fractured by guilt into a unit united by trust. The shadows chasing us were no longer capable of holding us hostage. They had become merely echoes of a testimony on how far we had come. As I reflected on our journey, I repeated my mantra softly in my mind. I am reclaiming my light. I am stronger than the darkness that has shrouded me. We had a long road ahead, but this was our new beginning. They thought they had left me with nothing. During those darkest days, I found a framework that changed everything. See the first comment for the complete guide. If this story is touching your heart, please consider sending a super chat to support the channel. Are you enjoying this journey with me? Show your support by sending super stickers. Did you feel that sense of justice? Show your appreciation by clicking the super thanks button. They thought they had left me with nothing.